We're going to discuss about the sexual violence against women. The context we all know. The recent incident happened in the Kolkata. We all are aware about it. In that context, we will try to discuss comprehensively this topic, the sexual violence against the women. What are the different factors which are responsible for such repeated instances despite having the stringent law? Apart from that, we will discuss about the different provisions, legal provisions, institutional provisions, rehabilitative provision, as well as the international level initiatives taken to resolve this issue of violence against the women. That we will cover. After that, the very important, we will cover Justice Verma committee recommendations. As way forward, we will cover all the points which were given by Justice Verma committee. At the end, we will use one UN women, United Nations women, given one quote related to the gender and the women. Through that we will conclude. So this would be the outline of our video. So let us start. For the introduction, you can use this quote, that is, the rape and sexual assault are not merely crimes of passion but an expression of power. Okay, so this is told by Justice Verma committee in its committee. It is not just the crime of passion, but it is the expression of power. So this you can use. Next very important point is what are the different factors responsible for the sexual violence against women. We can categorize our answer into four important components, that the socio-cultural factors are there, socio-economic and psychological factor, legal and institutional factor, and technological factors. First, that is the socio-cultural factor. As we know that patriarchal norms, as said by Justice Verma committee in a report in 2013, is one of the responsible factor which helps in perpetuation of the women's subordination and vulnerability to the violence. Next important point is cultural norms. Sometimes the societal attitudes actually justifies or provides a kind of tolerance towards the violence against women that helps in the normalization of the sexual violence. Next important point is the power and control. Actually, through sexual violence, men try to assert dominance and control over women, as said by Supreme Court in Nirbhaya case judgment of 2017. Sometimes the media irresponsible behavior also leads to the encouragement towards the sexual offenders. For example, objectification of the women in the media sometimes desensitize society for the violence against women. Then socio-economic and psychological factors. Socio-economic factor like the poverty can lead to vulnerability. Psychological factors like the childhood trauma, psychological disorder can lead to perpetrators contribute to abusive behavior. Alcohol and substance use actually lowers the inhibitions and increase likelihood of sexual violence. Next, the legal and institutional factor. Sometimes legal impunity or poor enforcement of the legal provisions can lead to the encouragement or the factor of you can say the survival for the perpetrator. As said by the Vishaka guidelines in 1997, Supreme Court said due to the poor implementation, even in the Justice Verma committee criticized the lack of sensitivity in the police force to deal the cases of sexual violence. Then conflict and the displacement. As we see in the many of the conflict prone areas, whether it is Myanmar or in the conflict prone areas, even in India, in Manipur, we see the sexual violence against the women. Similarly, weaponization of women during conflict. For example, we saw in Manipur how two women were paraded naked. So that shows the influence of weaponization of women. Basically, women are weaponized during the conflict. Then technological factors. In the era of the digital world, that is the internet and technology actually helps in perpetuation of harassment, sexual violence. These actually escalates the problem. What are the framework which is available against the sexual violence? Legal provisions, institutional provisions, scheme for rehabilitation, and the international level provisions. If you see the first, that is the legal provisions, we have BNS section 63 which defines rape, and 64 which actually gives the punishment for the against the rape. I have covered in a separate video which you will find in the link, that is in the playlist, about all the relevant sections of BNS, that is the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita. You can watch that. Next important law, that is the Protection of Women from Domestic Violence Act 2005. Sexual Harassment of Women at Workplace Prevention, Prohibition and Redressal Act of 2013. Fourth, Protection of Children from Sexual Offences Act 2012, also known as the POCSO Act. Information Technology Act of 2000, also, for example, section 67A, 67B actually deals with the harassment of women over the digital world. Visakha guidelines gave important guidelines against the sexual violence of women in workplace in 1997. That can also be used as a reference. Similarly, Nirbhaya case judgment of 2017, Justice Verma committee report of 2013. These are some important legal provisions. Institutional provisions like one-stop center scheme, for example, Sakhi scheme is there, National Commission for Women is there, then the Mahila Police Volunteer is also one of the key provision. As we know, the Nirbhaya fund is there for the rehabilitation and support of the victims of sexual violence and the violence against women basically. We have for the rehabilitation Swadhar Grih and the Sudhar Grih scheme, Ujjwala scheme, Women Helpline scheme and Integrated Child Protection scheme, which covers for the protection of women and girl children. Then implement international level provisions, for example, Convention on Elimination of All Form of Discrimination Against Women 1979, this is the convention. Then Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action 1995, based on the above convention, this declaration was adopted. International Labour Organization Convention number 190 of 2019 also deals with the violence against women. Looking towards the way forward, basically Justice Verma committee recommended a diverse and comprehensively to deal with the sexual violence against women. It covers the rape, sexual assault, sexual harassment at workplace, offences against women in conflict area, trafficking, child sexual abuse, punishment for the crimes against women, police reforms, reforms in the management of case related to crime against women, judicial reform, electoral reform and educational reform. So there are 12 major dimensions of recommendation given by the Justice Verma committee. So let us see one by one these important recommendation which we can from which we can learn and understand that what initiatives are required to tackle this kind of heinous crimes against women. First is related to the rape. The committee, Justice Verma committee, recommended that exception to the marital rape should be removed. This point can be used in the questions related to the marital rape also. Marriage should not be considered as an irrevocable consent to sexual acts, that was said by the Justice Verma committee. So basically the exception provided under the definition of rape should be removed. That was the recommendation of Justice Verma committee. Then sexual assault. Basically Justice Verma committee said that the definition of the sexual assault should be broadened and it should be included all forms of non-consensual, non-penetrative touching of a sexual nature. So it has talked about the broadening the definition of rape, sexual assault. Then important recommendation to bring the reform in the sexual harassment at workplace can be used. For example, domestic workers should be included in the purview of the bill. Under the bill, the complainant and the respondent are the first required to attempt the conciliation. That means the complainant and the respondent can talk with each other out of the court and decide for the conciliation. However, the committee identified that this provision is contrary to the Supreme Court judgment in the Visakha versus State of Rajasthan 1997 case. Next is the employer should pay the compensation to the women who has suffered sexual harassment. Fourth point, there should be the replacement of ICC, that is the internal complaint committee, which have the members from the same organization as well as the members from the out of the organization. However, the Verma committee said that it should be replaced by the employment tribunal in place of ICC. That was the recommendation of Justice Verma committee. Next is the offences against the women in conflict area. Especially you must be aware about the APSFA, that is the Armed Force Special Powers Act. In conflict area, Verma committee said it needs to be revisited. And second recommendation is under the APSFA to sanction any prosecution against the armed force personnel, we need to get the recommendation sanction from the central government. Central government sanction is required for the prosecution of the armed force personnel. That is the current provision. What Verma committee said that these kind of requirement of sanction from the central government should be excluded or removed when the sexual offences are in the question. Third point is that the complaint of sexual violence must be afforded. Basically, the complainant who has complained must be afforded witness protection. A special commissioner should be appointed in the conflict area to monitor and prosecute for the sexual offences. And training of the armed personnel should be reoriented to emphasize strict observation of order in this regard by the armed personnel. Next important dimension is the trafficking. It recommended criminalizing employment of the traffic person. Then the juvenile and the women protective homes should come under the guardianship of high courts, and we should try to reintegrate those victims into the society. About the child sexual abuse, committee said Juvenile Justice Act 2000 should include mental as well as the physical harm and the health respectively of the juvenile. Punishment of the crime against women. Committee denied to accept the proposal of chemical castration as a form of punishment in case of the sexual violence, in case of the rape. Then it also, in its opinion, it said that the death penalty should not be awarded. Instead, death penalty, we should implement life imprisonment for the rape. Why? Because there are enough evidence which suggests that death penalty was not a deterrence to the serious crimes. So based on this report, this understanding and the research report, committee said that life imprisonment should be the punishment. Then the police reform. Here Verma committee said there should be the State Security Commission. These recommendations are similar to the Prakash Singh Badal case of 2006. Here also Supreme Court gave certain recommendation for the reform in police. So what Verma committee has said, there should be the State Security Commission headed by the Chief Minister or Home Minister for appointment of the police officers, especially the senior police officers. Then also police establishment board should be established for the transfer, posting and the promotion related to officers. Third is there should be the minimum tenure of Director General of Police and the IG, which should be minimum 2 years. Reforms in the management of case related to crime against women. Here Verma committee said that the rape crisis cell should be set up. All police stations should be covered through CCTV cameras. Then FIR can be registered through online process. Then members of the public who help the victim should not be treated as the wrongdoers. The police should be well trained, sensitized towards the dealing of these sexual violence cases. We should explore the community policing also to develop by providing training to the volunteers. Judicial reforms, we need to get the speedy trial. Electoral reforms, this should be the basis of the disqualification. Then educational reforms, gender neutral education is required. Sexuality education, that is a sex education, should be imparted to the children, like the good touch, bad touch, those things. Adult literacy program are also important for the gender empowerment. In the conclusion, you can say that the violence against women is the violation of the human rights and a hindrance to the achieving gender equality, progress and development as per the United Nations Women.